Welcome back to another episode of the Day to Day with Daidrien podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be clearing up some things from last episode and going over some questions about the book. And the book is called Beyond the Surface, Daidriens Enigma. Today, I have my co-host, Carla Dirden. Last episode, we touched over many topics, but we were not able to go in detail about them. So this episode, we're going to try our best to answer some questions that popped up and give you guys some clarification. Now, Carla, I got some feedback. I want to clarify more on what it means to be misogynistic because I think many women use that term very loosely and not really understand what it means. I believe they use that word as a de facto to sum up what they think they know off of accusations. Can you clarify what it means to be misogynistic?
Okay. So I've heard that word a couple times in my life, and the thing is, a misogynistic, in this case, a misogynistic man will just kind of, the word misogyny means having like this, it's not out in the open. It's more or less like a secret contempt or hatred for women. Okay, a misogynistic man will have like this secret underlying contempt or hatred for women. It's almost like a prejudice. As with everything else, it stems from childhood. I know that sounds cliche, but it really does. And here's the thing. You might say, well, you can't be both. But you can be both because you can have feelings of love for someone and also a contempt or a hatred for them at the same time. So here's an example. It's like having a prejudice. So we are existing and coexisting on the earth with racist and prejudiced people all day, every day. People that you work with, people that you see at Starbucks all day, every day. They may say, hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? That's a kind gesture, but they still may not like your particular race. So I want to give a very blunt example, but I want to package it right. This is probably a man who, as a boy, probably witnessed his mom having a lot of boyfriends and maybe never giving him any attention. And then you can get into all of the worst situations where, you know, the heinous things you see in the movies, where a little boy didn't get enough attention from his mother, or the only thing she ever said to him were things that were, you know, rude, hateful, mean. Maybe she was an alcoholic or drunk, and spewed, you know, never-ending insults. And picture an 8-year-old little boy. You know, he's going to grow up. He's going to love his mom, but he's going to grow up hating her. Now, if you want to get even more deeper, you watch something like Criminal Minds. I know it sounds funny, but these are the kinds of profiles that they do on people where the serial killer only targets women with red hair because his abusive mother had red hair. That's misogyny.
Okay. Because I'm not going to put myself in this, but I believe that you can't. No, because I don't want to go off my experiences. I don't want to be biased, and everybody don't think like me. But the only reason why I'm going to say this is because I don't think that you can love and hate at the same time. They're not synonymous. If my actions are telling you that I care about you, but you're receiving misogynistic undertones based off what you think is going on, based off your preconceived notions, but my actions are telling you otherwise, there'll be evidence at their disposal of that in your past relationships. Like, because women talk, and you may have an evidence of like being a womanizer. You can't keep a woman around, you know, your actions are saying this, how you speak to them, all type of stuff. Like, the evidence is there and you can clearly see. And then based off their beliefs, what are their beliefs? Because we live in a world now where the beliefs have been manipulated, especially when it comes to religion. And I was studying that. I don't want to get off topic, but I was studying that, and we can talk about this later in another episode. But the undertones of that and where it came from, and having a problem with the woman principle, and that stems a lot from religion. And we're going off most men, and like you were saying, it does stem through childhood. I agree with you. A lot of things stem through childhood. But when we coast through life under the belief system of how things are supposed to be, then we tend to think they're the right way. And everybody's belief is different. Everybody comes to different cultural backgrounds, so our beliefs may not line up the same based off what we've been taught. And sometimes what we receive, we think is right because the people who are giving us information we look up to. And I can see in certain ways how it can be seen as misogynistic, putting myself in their shoes and just trying to look at everything from an outside lens. And then you have actions or what I'm actually doing. For example, the belief may be like, I think women belong in the kitchen, but his actions are saying providing. I can see how she thinks he can be misogynistic. I can see that, but it's his actions saying otherwise.
Okay. So I want to go back just a little bit when you said you can't love and hate at the same time. No, you can't. But here's the thing.
Because, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm so sorry. But I meant to say this earlier. Love and lust is completely different. I can lust over you and hate women. That is real. And that happens. But I think many people, especially men, get love and lust confused. Are you lusting over somebody or are you in love with somebody? Because if you are in love with somebody, then that hatred isn't there. And that person may not be able to articulate that, and based off his belief system, which may not be right, and his actions, I can understand the miscommunication. I can understand the difference. I can understand the disconnect between the two parties. I can see that. Before we go out and we label a person misogynistic, I think that we need to have the evidence at our disposal so that we can correctly convict this person of this, instead of just going off saying something based off two different belief systems.
Okay. So, right. So going back when you said that you can't, love and hate at the same time. The thing about it's, so go back to the example that I used about working with someone in the workplace that's racist or prejudiced. They can be cordial to you, but at some point, those undertones are going to come out. Something that they say, do. In other words, vibrationally, you're going to feel it. Like vibrationally, you're going to sense the undertones, which means that the truth is that they don't really like you because of whatever racist thing. They don't, but they're going along to, no one really just comes out and says, I'm a misogynistic person. So it's masked. And what has happened is people get really good at masking the undertones until they even believe that they don't have them anymore. It's very difficult to convince someone, and just take the correlation of someone that's racist or prejudiced.
I understand what you're saying, and it's valid. But that can be anything.
But it's very difficult to convince them that they are. It's very difficult. You can argue with them all day, and they'll still say that they're not racist.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
But no,
I agree with you.
But in this case, I'm not saying you are. I asked you last podcast, has she ever asked you if you were, or said anywhere use the word misogynistic, or I don't know if that was, but because some of the things that she kept saying. So
and then that goes to show, like, what is her belief of misogynistic? What is a woman's belief of misogynistic? Because I've asked many women this, and it's all different, and they never get the definition right. But that's okay. And I understand, because we live in a world where we rely on social media, and social media isn't always correct. But I will say, there are going to be undertones, but those undertones can be anything. They can be because that person may think you look better than them. I realize, and this can be a topic, that women compare men as if they're the same in looks. Like, I heard a girl say this the other day, like, I can't be with a man who looks better than me. We're judged off a totally different metric. And I was so thrown off by that, but many women do believe that. And that is okay. I'm just saying, and that's okay. I'm just saying, what is it? Because before we diagnose somebody with being a misogynist, and that's a very serious accusation, I think that we should, try to investigate this a little bit and see what it is that they may not like you about. It can be because I'm tall, or you're tall, or I'm fit and they're not, or I'm smarter and they're not. Because people are not gonna, what I realized is people are put you, okay, for example, if somebody says you think you're better than me, huh? I don't hear this, but I hear it a lot. Okay. That's because the person they said that to, they genuinely believe that person is better, because you're not going to say that to somebody that you think you're better of or equal to. And some people don't even see the hierarchy in that, because sometimes people are completely taken off. Like, you think you're better than me, huh? Like, I hear that so much, not to me. People don't say it to me, but I hear it. And that's because that person thinks that the person they're relaying that to is on a higher level than them. So what is it that is the undertones? Like, I feel like,
I think that probably a lot of people are actually confusing. See, misogyny and narcissistic and, the womanizer, and they're very closely synonymous. And I think that because, the term narcissist just seems like it's just trending a lot. They probably, they probably mean more something along the lines of being narcissistic or a womanizer. Not misogyny it runs extremely deep. I mean, it runs extremely deep. And I think that a lot of if someone you said a lot of women don't know really what it means, and everybody's saying that it means the same thing. They are probably somewhere along the lines more of talking about maybe narcissistic or a womanizer or something along those lines. Misogyny runs a lot deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's ingrained. Like you'd have to have a pretty rough, like I said, all these things do start in childhood, some kind of childhood trauma. You'd have to have a really heinous childhood to be like a true misogynist.
I agree.
I think that people are more along the lines of something. If I had to categorize all three words, misogyny, narcissist, or womanizer, the womanizer is the least of the three. Narcissist would probably run in the middle of misogyny is horribly worse. So they probably are using the word wrong. Just to answer that particular part where you said everybody sees it as being something different. It's only one definition for the word.
I agree.
It's just that I think that they're probably meaning somewhere along the lines of maybe they want to use the word narcissist or maybe just womanizer. I mean, I've dated womanizers and that's kind of funny compared to misogyny is dangerous.
It is.
That's where the serial killer. That's the person who turns into the serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's a very serious accusation.
Right. The womanizer is not going to be a serial killer. They're just going to run a whole bunch of women and play the field.
Right. And that's misogyny is taught. That is taught. Just like racism, that is taught. You cannot just, like, I've been through a lot when it came to women, and I look back and I can't hate none of them for that. A lot of people, I feel like men don't hate women. We hate the ideas we were sold to about women. We don't hate women.
I don't agree with that. I think that, like I said, it depends on the situation. I don't think that men want to hate women, but I think that there are traumatic experiences. It's just like if you know how it feels, if you ever said, "Man, I hate her, I hate him," it's the same hate. It's that feeling that goes deep concerning whatever person or situation, or I hate that, or I hate this. And men, you don't want to, but I don't think it's any different than hating anything or anybody else. It's just something that has just cut you down so bad to where when you think about it, you don't think about feelings of love towards that person or the situation. You think about something on the opposite end. So I don't think that women want to hate men either, on that respect. But situations and traumas happen and they sort of stay wedged in a person. And it's just like any other trigger. Like I said, the serial killer might only kill women with curly red hair because his mother had curly red hair. That's because the trigger is still there. And every time he see a woman with curly red hair on some college campus, he sort of aims towards her, and he may watch her and be enthralled with her at the same time, but it's like, nope, you got to go because you remind me of mom, that kind of thing. But I think there's a battle inside too. As a woman, I've dated a womanizer. I actually have a friend that I've been friends with for probably 15 years, and he is a white male. And I was talking to him on the phone the other day, and I was like, oh, my God, do you hate women? Like, because I know some of the traumatic situations he's been through, and to hear some of his undertones, I asked him that question, and, he kind of laughed it off. But at one point 10 years ago, he was in a pretty bad situation because of, some things that his wife had done that was, pretty bad and went on for a long time. And it goes back to our Forgiveness Formula podcast. I don't think the wound was ever addressed until probably later on. And I don't think he realized that. See, most people, if you were to tell the racist person you're racist, they'd probably get pissed off at you. I think that's because of the internal conflict, not because they don't want you to figure it out. There's internal conflict going on about, the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. One day you're okay, the next minute you're triggered. So people it's like people, the narcissists, the womanizers, they all deny it.
So, okay.
No one's going to sit and have a conversation with you, and say, oh, yeah, I am a womanizer.
Yeah. So, okay, that's another term, racism. A person cannot be racist. Racist is a systematic structure. Most people being racist don't have enough money to be racist. They're prejudiced. Racism and being a bigot is not synonymous. Being prejudiced and a bigot is synonymous. So when people go around saying they're racist, they're still using a word wrong. And
well, that could also mean that one person is caught up in that system that you are referring to. In other words, you're racist because you're in the racist system. You have the same views as everyone else in that system. But the prejudice is there. But if the system is called racist, you're in that system with everybody else who's quote unquote racist. It could be 300 million people and you guys are all labeled as prejudiced, but you're in a, like you just said, it's a system, but you're in that system.
You can be in that system, but if you don't control the means of production, then you can't be racist. You don't have enough money you don't have enough power to be racist. So the belief is the same. They're prejudiced, but they're not racist. I control the means of production, so I can dictate somebody's life with my system. You see what I'm saying? That's like,
but
I
who
can.
makes up the, how did it become a system? You have to have other parties and other things involved. You know, it can't just be you. You're not you as in you. But
yeah, I get it. Like, yeah, I understand. But like, if you're in control of somebody's livelihood, then you're in the position to be racist, because you can dictate based off what you don't like about them, and you can dictate their life. Just like when they took them chains off, they added laws. The FCRA is a prime example of racism, and it's right there in front of your face.
I mean, I see what you're saying. You actually, yes, you're breaking it down. But when people say you're racist, you're saying that they should be saying you're prejudiced because they're talking to just one person.
Yeah, or a bigot.
But then all the hundreds of thousands of people that are prejudiced are the ones who are sort of, because you're saying that a person can only be racist if you have the power to control someone else's life with your racism.
I'm saying if you don't control the means of hiring and firing, you can't control somebody's livelihood, then you can't be racist. For example, if I hire somebody, I'm going to do a background check, right? Their credit score will dictate what position I put them in, and this is real. But if I can't dictate, and I can show you all of this in the law, but most companies, for example, you may be on a job site for 20 years and somebody come in for 5 years and get a position that you've been working 20 years for. That is because when they did them background checks, they seen that your credit score was most likely lower than theirs. And that says to them, if you can't manage your own finances, then you can't manage this company. And I had this conversation a while back, and it's called The Great Escape. It was a podcast where I kind of go over this a little bit more. But that shows me what it is and what it's not. And then it goes to show, like, I can see all of that stuff. Your CRA report, your consumer reporting, I can see all of that stuff. This is why they want the background checks. If anything, it should be the other way around, because they're paying me. Are you going to pay me on time? They shouldn't be running background checks on me. I should be running background checks on them. They got the game totally messed up. But just because they see you in a position of desperation, they can do what they want to. And I can pull up the FCRA and show you what I mean. And then they use this system to dictate zip codes. If you look up the average zip code in your area, it may be low or high. And I can guarantee you, if it's low, and I'm not trying to be funny, it's probably a lot of black people. But if you go to like the Woodlands and look up the average credit score, what color are they? This is done systematically. So it makes me laugh that people say that person is racist. That person is not racist. That person is prejudiced. Let's get the terms right. And if we get the terms right, we can accurately get a fix on the problem if we use the correct terminology. If you don't know where you're bleeding, you just don't know. And then you may have somebody who come in and show you, and you may think, or for example, many people aren't really, it just takes a specific person to know how to use their words to get through people like this, or get through anybody in this type of environment, because people's minds have been so conditioned. Not to mention the words you're using. Have you tracked what the words actually mean before you use them and how to use them? Because most people are using them wrong. You know, like, for example, when you use words and you're talking, like when I went back and analyzed my relationship or my text messages or anybody else's, I'm now looking for negative connotations, because that'll dictate where that person got their attitude from. And I can break this down later in another episode because I don't want this to be too long. But, you know, words that associate with negative connotations, meaning words that may sound bad, but they don't have the meaning they think you do. It's just a negative feeling towards the word you used. So, for example, the word disciplined. Depending on how you use that, you can take it the wrong way. You're not very disciplined. You see what I'm saying? But if you look at what the word discipline means, then you wouldn't have associated that with a negative feeling, if that makes sense. Okay, let me use a better example. The word cheap. Oh, this is cheap. You may feel a little bit embarrassed that somebody told you that, but cheap just means inexpensive. It doesn't mean low quality, but we associate that with low quality.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons, because English is an unequivocal language and people use different words. And plus of all our slang and what is it called? The Ebonics, and
Ebonics.
We really don't, like, the average person does not speak in a way where they're using the exact formal word. Like every word is the exact formal word that it's more than one way to say or to type or write a sentence. And people get it because of the way we've been trained in our speech. So when you say one thing, like, you know how people say, I'm going to the crib. Well, you mean I'm going home. You're not going to a little baby crib that's, you know, 2x2, right? You're not going to the crib. But, and that's what I meant when I said sometimes people can use one word when they mean something else, but you're not, they're misspeaking. Formally, they're misspeaking. But because English is an unequivocal language, and plus, if you take into consideration slang and ebonics, then on the other hand, they're not misspeaking, and it's actually understood. In other words, you know what I mean when I say I'm going to go to the crib. You know what I mean. So that's what I'm saying as far as the whole misogyny, narcissistic, womanizer. Very few people, I've only heard the word misogynist very few times in my life. I hear narcissist and womanizer quite a bit. I didn't even know I was married to a womanizer. I never referred to him as a womanizer until I actually, I got the revelation. But if somebody says that, the person they're talking to will know what they mean to say. They'll know what they mean to say, even if they're not using that particular formal word formally correct in a sentence, but they'll know. So that's why people don't that's why people really don't bother trying to do exactly what you're saying, because people understand what they're saying. You would have to wipe out ebonics, wipe out slang in all cultures and languages, and just speak formally from a book. When I minored in Spanish in college, and there's two ways I could learn it from a book. And if you learn it from a person, you're basically going to learn a whole nother language. So I understood formal Spanish. I could read formal Spanish and speak formal Spanish. But if you get out with somebody on one of the construction sites, I could not understand what they were saying. It was totally different wording. But the other person that they work with every day can understand what they say. And guess what? They didn't know the words I was using because mine came straight from the book. So in that respect, I think a lot of times it just depends on who you're talking to. You can make your vibrational point even if you use the wrong word. You see what I'm saying? So
if a person is ambiguous, that'll work.
But okay, but what do you mean when you say if they're ambiguous,
meaning they can perceive more than one understanding of the word. For example, the word cheap. If I said that looks cheap, they're going to be like, oh, the item is for sale or low price. Somebody else may equate that to you calling me broke. But the word just means low in price, but we associate that with being low in quality. But that doesn't mean cheap. That does not, you see what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that.
Right. And I can tell you that if I use, oh, that sure looks cheaply made, I mean low in quality. I ain't even talking about the price because I ain't even saw it yet. You can spot something. And you're saying cheap is the wrong word to use if that's what I'm saying, if I'm meaning low in quality. And I'm saying that because it's so widely used and so widely understood that if I say it to the person standing next to me, they're going to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but
even if they know both, they're going to know that I'm talking about this shirt. You can look at the stitching and it looks like it's cheaply made. It's irregular. The stripes are not evened up, lined up. Cheap means poorly made, irregular.
Depending on how you contextualize that, but I would not take offense to that. And that's where the problem comes in. People take offense to things they shouldn't take offense to. And that's my point. And then somebody will be like, oh, you're misogynist or whatever term they want to use. If you understood what the word means and where it came from and how to use it, then you're going to redefine what it means to be disrespected. And you're going to walk around with your head held high because you're going to know that people are misusing words because it's you that adds the meaning to the word. If I curse you out in Portuguese, you're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, have a good day. If you knew what I said, you added value to the word, you would be offended or anybody, whatever, how you want to feel about it. But it's us that adds meaning to the word. You can add meaning to the word if you don't know what it means. Well,
that's just the thing. Our speech is so informal that they will know what it means even if you're using it wrong. That's what I'm saying. Our speech is so informal and so just sometimes incorrect, literally incorrect. Like when I say I'm going to the crib, I'm not going to a little baby bed. But it's so widespread that the average person will know. They will know that nobody is going to say, oh, ma'am, I'm sorry, you misspoke. When I'm in Macy's looking at this cheap shirt, oh, that looks cheap. Oh, ma'am, I'm sorry, you misspoke. You mean low quality made. They're not going to say that. They're going to be like, yeah, you're right, it do look cheap. Look at this. That's because it's so widely used and so normalized that even if I'm using the word cheap wrong in the sentence, they still going to know what I mean when I say that. That's all I'm saying. So in that respect, there's a sort of a likeness or a similarity. What I mean and what I'm saying saying, even though the word I'm using is wrong, they're going to still understand what I'm talking about. And that's just norms. That's just what I call norms. That's why I said earlier, if a person uses the word misogyny, they probably mean womanizer or narcissist. Because misogyny is just not something that you're probably not going to run into a misogynistic man too. It's just, like I said, those things kind of like heinous and wretched, and you probably talk about someone who's narcissistic or a womanizer. But they might use that word, maybe even just to sound fancy. I don't know. But at the end of the day, they probably did not use the right word. But someone will catch what they're saying and understand it, because you can just take it in the context that they're saying it, and you can understand what they're trying to say. Like I heard the word narcissist hundreds. I used to read books with narcissism, and I never knew what the word actually meant until about 5 or 6 years ago. But I could grasp, somebody who thinks that everything's all about them and blah, 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 based on the books that I was reading. But I never formally looked up the word until about 5 or 6 years ago, because I was dating a narcissist. And I wanted to know, what does this word freaking mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and that's all I'm saying. Like, but if you're gonna do it like that, then that's everybody. That's like the average person's conversation on any daily basis. We all using the English language wrong. Pretty much anything you say in any given time, you're probably using something out of context, some kind of hyperbole and over exaggeration, things like that. But unfortunately, that's what our norm is. That's just what our norm is. And I don't think that people, if you're using it wrong, I don't think people mean to be offensive. I just think that it's just the norm, because everybody uses the English language wrong.
To a degree, but some use it better than others. Like, for example, ignorance. If you call somebody ignorant, they're going to take that disrespectfully, but that means that you just don't know.
Don't know something.
So why would you get
to the Japanese language?
So why would you get offended if you knew what it meant? And if you felt like the vibration was right? Because when I do speak, I try to remove words that you're going to take wrong. I try to remove words with negative connotations so that you don't misinterpret what I'm saying, because that happens. Communication means nothing without comprehension. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you're going to take it to your best of your knowledge to think, or to tell yourself, or break down in your head, internalize what I said and try to make it sense to you, and then respond. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, or how to use the word, or what the words actually come from, then you're going to be lost most of the time.
Well, the thing about the word ignorant, is because normally the word ignorance is used to insult somebody, right, to criticize somebody.
They use it for derogatory terms. But if you took the time to understand what you were saying, then you would probably move through life a whole lot easier.
I don't disagree with that, but the average person is not going to go and look up the actual meaning in Webster's dictionary. Like, look at the word bitch. I didn't cuss when I just said that. A bitch is a female dog.
Yeah, I know.
A bastard is a child whose mother is not married to their father.
Yeah, I know. Okay. I know that. I know that. But that word is a derogatory term. I'm not going to be offended, and if I use it, I'm using it correctly. But I would not use it in a derogatory way like that, because most people not going to understand that. So I remove that from my vocabulary when I'm discussing it with certain people. Is what I'm saying.
And I would still argue the point that even if you use it correctly, somebody within earshot may still be offended because of the normalized use of the word.
But that's them being misled, though.
Right, but that's age old. Like, that's like. But you can't. I don't think you can really do anything to kind of like fix that. Now, if you take it upon yourself, your personal self, and to speak every word in absolute correct context and what it means, you'll be one. You'll be one, and it doesn't mean that you can't ever do it, and it doesn't mean that you can't always do it. It may just mean that you can do that depending on the few people who are like you that you're talking to. Because I would venture to say that even though I know what a female dog is, I've never called my dog that, because unfortunately the connotation that's going to come up in me is that it's just an ugly word. So, and a word that people use when they're angry, and a word that people use when they want to offend and hurt and wound. So even though that word literally means a female dog, I personally don't even want to use that to call my dog that, because it has way too much energy behind it as being negative. So I just rather not. I just rather say, my dog is a girl. Mm-hmm. My dog is a girl. I'm not married to my son's dad. I would never. And I wouldn't let anybody else do it. They were using the term right, call my child a bastard. I'm sorry. It's not happening. Because unfortunately, it's just come way too far where those words are offensive. So, if you've ever seen people in European they have words that come off as like that. And they're like, what do you mean? That's not, I'm not being offended. Literally, I've heard Europeans and Americans going back and forth because a European said something that's in their normal and it was offensive to the American, but that's their normal and it was English.
Before you get offended, shouldn't you ask for clarification? Like, what did you mean by that? And if you understand, if you know that they don't know what they mean by that, when you ask clarification, just walk away. Why get offended? Why waste your energy on something like that? Because you're arguing with somebody?
But if you can ask why get offended, then you can ask why get offended with anything. And unfortunately, sometimes people are offended because it was the intention for them to be offended. You see what I'm saying? And that's why, even though your view on this particular thing is the way that it is, it ain't going to turn around in the next 24 hours. We're still going to have the language that we speak and the references that we use and things like that. That's what I'm saying. You can't just wipe out. You can't just make this one-liner blanket statement. Well, if you know that they don't know what they're talking about, why be offended? Well, because sometimes people mean to offend you. That's one reason to be offended. You were trying to offend me in the first place. So, and a lot of that is what's actually going on, whether the right word or the wrong word is being used. Like, that's what I'm saying. The point that you're making is actually correct. Like, it's not error, it's correct. But what we live with, that point that you made is not going to spread this whole thing over everybody tonight while they sleep. And we all wake up in the morning using the English language completely accurate and correct. It's just not. Now, we would have to wipe out, because if you say, why be offended? Why not just walk away?
All I'm saying, because think about it.
We don't use words like that.
If a person meant to offend you anyway, why would you sit there and waste dialogue with them if their intention is to upset you? That should give you even more clarity to walk away, and this person is not worth your time.
Well, you can't. Sometimes you can't walk away, Daidrien. Sometimes you can't. Okay, let's think about a situation where it's like maybe your boss. A lot of people are, unfortunately, more people than not, are having so many issues with bosses that treat them like crap. So I don't think it's even professional to walk away from your boss when they're being offensive or insulting or rude. I think that you should sort of engage, not indulge in the conversation. You're getting some wicked pleasure, but just engage in the conversation to where, even if it's nothing more than just to clarify that I do not approve of or appreciate you speaking to me in such a rude, offensive, condescending way, I would appreciate it if you would respect me when you speak to me. But what you're saying is don't even do that. And I'm saying sometimes you have to. It's necessary. You can't walk away from everybody who you think talking stupid.
If I was on a job site and an employer was talking to me like he was some type of, I can understand his role, but if my employer disrespected me, I'm going after that straw man account. I'm going after your business. I'm hitting you. I'm calling OSHA. You violated. I guarantee you already violated at least 10 federal regulations inside of the employee handbook, which I can prove. So I dare you. I'm the type of person, it's cheaper to keep me, and I want you to retaliate. I want you to show 1 ounce of retaliation with the schedule, anything. If anything change, that's why I tell people to read that contract.
Yeah, but Daidrien, let me just hit you to something. Unfortunately, it ain't as easy, quick, or seamless as you making it sound. That's not something that's not even realistic, what you just said on the job. Listen, this is what really is going to happen. You go against your boss. You go up against HR. HR is going to come at you. They could be retaliating, because if you file a grievance against the company, it's my understanding that they can't fire you because that definitely proves some kind of retaliation. So you're sitting there for 6 months while you got people coming at you. It's a very heavy emotional and stressful weight to bear.
HR shouldn't be talking to you. HR should be talking to you anyway without legal representation. That's what I'm saying.
But here's what I'm saying. This is what I always tell you about. Sometimes when the language, it may be correct, but what I've said before is you have to consider the person that you're talking to. So if your language is always so high and expanded that you can't have a normal everyday conversation with somebody, it's not that person's ignorance, it's the fact that you can't put on a different hat. And what I'm saying is the situation that you just described, getting into it with your boss, facing potential possible retaliation, going at it with HR, and you said, I'm going after this. The average person is just wanting to go home to their kids. They're not talking about a straw man account. That's what I'm saying. Maybe that's a whole nother podcast, but that's not what's going on with the average person. If I myself, I have had to go against the boss and HR, that is very heavy. I do not want to go home in that energy with my children, my family, my household. I have other responsibilities. I do not want to go to work every day, driving to work, worrying about my job security. I don't know what every freaking law is in the FACRA or the EEOC. I don't know that. All I know is that my intention was to get up this morning, go to work, and have a good day. And then bam. One of the things that's wrong with a lot of situations is that they don't know all those laws. But the average person is not really spending their time, they're not digging off into that really too much on an everyday basis because they got 20 other things that they got to do. And like I said, the intention this morning was just to get up, go to work, and have a good day. So you may be the person studying those things, but the average person is just not.
When I was 19, I was doing that. And I was working every day, but I found the time to read the handbook and see the violations.
Yeah.
And see what I found that time because
did you bathe any kids, cook any dinner? No, Daidrien, that was your life. That's not. See, that's what the mistake you're making is like error right at this point, because you're actually talking to somebody who had a total opposite life of yours. And whereas I am hella smart and did a whole bunch of reading, that wasn't what I came home and read. You have to almost run into a situation that forces you to read those things, read the employee manual, read the FACRA, you almost have to run into a situation that you almost have to be in a situation that sort of forces you. Most people aren't studying those things on their own. The redemption manual, the measure. Most people are not doing those things on their own.
I agree.
It's not like a part of their daily lifestyle.
I agree.
And you have a different lifestyle than I do. So
I agree, but I still had responsibilities. So, for example, the average person at 19 wasn't coming home after work. They was going out. They had other distractions. They had other responsibilities. Everybody's life is different. I'm not saying that it's the same, but I'm saying if at a young age, I'm like, if my livelihood is weighing on the balance of one income, I should know all the ends, or at least try to have better ground on where I am just for security purposes.
Yeah, but only in the last 10 years that people start realizing that it was a need for that in the first place. They thought they were safe. You understand? Let's look at everything. You're making a blanket statement about what somebody should be doing with their life. No, we all thought we were safe. No one ever thought that they would have to learn, read the redemption manual, read a Black's Law dictionary. No one thought that they would have to do those things prior to the last 15 years or so, or especially before the age changed from Piscean to Aquarian. Now it's kind of falling on people and in their consciousnesses and in their spirits that they need to go in these directions to find out what their true rights are as a human being and as an American citizen and as a freaking Houstonian, if you want to just break it down. But the average person isn't doing that. That's something that interested you. And I read all the things that I was interested in.
It didn't interest me. Why would I not read the employee handbook if I'm going to be an employee to an organization? That doesn't make any sense not to do it. I'm not talking about law and legalese. You're right. I agree. 100%. Somebody had to tell me to do those things. I didn't have to run into the problem. I just listened to people who gave me advice who's in a higher position. So I'm all right, I'll look into it and I know these things and I'll get into it. But I'm talking about as far as having a job. Why wouldn't you read the employee handbook so that you can understand your employee rights? Somebody who doesn't know their rights is just as the same as somebody who has no rights. You're both the same. So wouldn't it be wise to hear?
Remember, the employee handbook is not always. Sometimes it's a bit evasive, and it's evasive on purpose because they know by this time everybody knows that HR is not an advocate for the employee. They're an advocate for the company to just keep out for the company to prevent them from being sued. They tell the people in the company what to do so they don't get sued. So the employee handbook doesn't always really even answer questions like, it just depends on the depth of the situation and the specifics and the dynamics of the situation. Sexual harassment is a big one. Very evasive. The employee handbook does not completely cover the ins and outs of sexual harassment. And so what HR will do is they school their higher up on how to not get involved in those situations. Most employees don't know that, but they do, because I've been friends with a whole bunch of directors of this and CEOs of that. And that's what HR spends a lot of time doing. They're always, higher level management spends a lot of time learning about things like this so that they don't get themselves and the company in trouble. But sometimes the situation just has to surface first in order for you to see how you need to kind of go about engaging with it to resolve it. But even the employee handbook does not explicitly cover all the ins and outs of just that one subject, sexual harassment. As a matter of fact,
I agree.
It's one of the subjects that's really, really evasive.
But what I'm saying is, if you're reading that book, it'll lead to something else. What is this? What does this mean? What does that do? What is this word? It'll lead to more. You just got to start somewhere. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. But actually, what people are hoping is that they don't have to ever get into those situations in the first place. People just want to go to work and have a decent day, like
I agree.
A productive day. And sometimes these things, they sort of meet you out of nowhere, and then you have to address it. I mean, like, I actually loved reading the employee handbook when I worked at Target, when I worked at Waste Management, and you read it, and you kind of going about your business for the next 3 months while you're in your probationary period, let's say, and then you're like, my 90 days is over, and, I can kind of chill a little bit and just not be so tense because I'm still within my 90 days. And then bam, 6 months later. And then what happens is I actually went back and reread the employee handbook to see if there's anything in the employee handbook that addresses this particular situation. And actually I found that more oftentimes than not, the employee handbook does not explicitly cover the whole situation. It will cover an overview. And when you get into that situation, you still have to kind of argue back and forth with your manager or with HR and sort of plead your case, so to speak. But the HR manual ain't really a manual for the employee. It's just basically an overview. So I'm saying that something may have to actually happen in order for someone to kind of be led in the direction of those things that you're talking about. Not that, because you mentioned like so far you've mentioned like FACRA, and you've mentioned I can't think of the other one that you mentioned, but I'm saying like only reason why I know what FACRA is because I have a mortgage license. That's the only reason why I know. The Fair Credit Reporting Agency, that's the only reason why I know what FACRA is. Otherwise, I've seen it on credit card statements when you get approved for a new credit card. The Fair Credit Reporting Act says you have a right to request your credit report within 60 to 90 days if you deny credit. But if you ask the average person that, they probably don't know because they probably never had a situation where they had to dig off into that stuff. You are just one of those people, you went in that direction sort of normally, like you just led there normally without possibly having to be in those situations. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I can. Yeah, in a way, but for example, if I have credit, I'm reading how to get better credit because I want to win at the game they call life. And most importantly, I want to know what I'm talking about and know who I can and can't trust in this game. At the end of the day, it's all a game. And the people's lives depend on how they play the game. And it's not fair for the people at the bottom. And I don't understand. My philosophy is, why are you waiting on somebody else to come and why are you waiting on somebody else to come and help you or save you? Like, honestly, like I don't want to rely on somebody to give, like, for example, lawyers. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I don't want to have to rely on them to tell me or get me off if something went wrong. I have to rely on this other person to get me out of trouble. Rely on myself first. And that's just with anything I apply in my life. Like whatever I do in one area, I'm going to do in another. If that makes sense. If I'm going to read about something here, I'm going to read about something there. If I have integrity here, I'm going to have integrity there. And what I don't know, I just ask. But at least I have some foundation of information so I can't be manipulated. Because most people are going to go through life thinking they can manipulate you because you don't know anything. And I just don't like that. Like I don't like people being taken advantage of. And something that I live by is I always wanted to know what I didn't know. I always wanted to know what to do.
I feel you on that. Because that's one of the reasons why I got off into a lot of the readings of the particular types of things that I got off into. It's just like I always believed that people had magical gifts and talents, meaning in the real sense of the word, moving energy, vibrationally moving, changing energy. So I studied it. It was an interest to me, and I learned some things and wanted to know how it works because that's how I felt I would change my life. So in that respect, that's valid what you're saying. But the thing that I'm saying is that everybody's not going to listen to those same things. Most people will be, if you change something that you're doing, the average person is mostly because something happened to make you change. So you see a lot of YouTube videos. Are you feeling stuck in life? Do you have blockages? And if that resonates with you because you feel stuck, you're probably going to click on that video and get some information, and then go and apply some information and use your information to transform something in your life, change something in your life. I'm just saying that if you feel like everything's okay, you're probably not going to be looking too much into things that you're not going to be looking off into legal cases if you don't have one or things along those lines. It's probably going to have to just be something that sort of pokes at you or comes your way to kind of open up your, expand your paradigm to go and have an interest in, read that particular book. That's what I'm saying. But you're saying, why isn't everybody doing it? Well, because everybody is they have different specifics in their life that get their attention that they're drawn to tend to and take care of every day. So it probably would have to be a situation that comes up for them to kind of go in another direction. But just because they're not doesn't mean they don't want to know. People think that they're
I agree.
safe. And so something has to happen. Some have to fall apart. Somebody got to get T-boned and sideswiped. Oh, no, I'm going to look into the law because the insurance company not paying me all my money for my settlement. There you go. There's a situation right there.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. But the best way to learn is through other people's experience. For example, some people may not have had run-ins with the law, but people have had run-ins with the law. And that people have been taken advantage of by the law. And you also know the law is not on your side, just like for first class and second class citizens. Like, this. Even if you don't know, I'm not even going to say you don't know. Why haven't you had the interest to look into it? Because this could be you.
Well, on that particular note, I think that is the one thing worldwide at this point that people are looking into because of all the situations that are going on. It just happens to be one subject with a whole bunch of situations that people are experiencing and being traumatized over that pertain to the exact thing that you just said. You just happen to give an example of something that's affecting the whole world right now. So yeah, people are looking into it. And I think that's what caused the whole I don't know if the conscious movement is what I call it happened 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago when I started sitting in a group of people talking about it. But I'm assuming it happened before that because the people that I was talking to already knew about it. But the law did not protect me. The law betrayed me. The justice system did not work for me. Yep, that's a situation right there that'll make somebody look into the law, the real law. And, I remember how I felt the first time I read the Constitution and my mouth dropped. I was like,
mm-hmm. And it's crazy.
We are living in a world. Living in a world with a bunch of criminals. The criminals are our overseers. The crooks and criminals. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that's something I should say, but when the entity of the IRS is completely unconstitutional. There should not be one.
I agree.
And I remember my mouth dropped when I saw that. But I read the Constitution for the first time about 12 years ago. I don't know that my best friend has, nor that I sort of, prod her to, hey, you need to read the Constitution. But I have told plenty of people, hey, did you know that the actual entity of the IRS is completely unconstitutional? Did you know that if you go and put your foot on the block of land and say, this is my homestead, that it belongs to you? The Bible even says that every place on which the sole of my foot treads, I've given thee.
Come on now.
So,
come on, I know. People don't even know
you see
that
what I'm saying?
if you make a certain amount of money, the IRS is supposed to pay your taxes. You're not supposed to pay taxes to them. Just like the FBI, the CIA, all these organizations are unconstitutional.
Exactly.
I know, all of them, and there's more than one.
Not to mention the fact that those are the very organizations that are sort of doing us in. But
exactly.
We're drowning in this pot. Where's our life raft going to come from? Because that's where those entities is where our life raft should have come from. And now that we find out those are the very entities that's damning us, where's our life raft going to come from? And that's what's making people look into the actual wording of these laws to find out and when they look into it, they're going to find out that they are their own life raft.
Exactly.
We were supposed to be our own life raft. We weren't supposed to have, just like the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments is really not biblical. It's just in the Bible. It came because people was acting up and acting crazy. The reason why that Moses got the 10 Commandments is because it was to straighten them up, not to give them direction that y'all been doing this here. Commandment number 1, don't do that. Y'all been doing this here. Commandment number 2, thou shalt not do that. It was thou shalt not because they was already doing it.
All of those 10 Commandments are in they were stolen from Ma'at.
The 42 laws of Ma'at.
Yeah, they were stolen from there. All 10.
Yeah, and it's not even 10. It's the 42 laws of Ma'at.
Yeah, and when I looked into that the other day, I was like, now this makes more sense because, listen, you can have, for example, they say one of the commandments is thou shalt not lie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, be realistic with, like, that's gonna happen. That is gonna happen. Like when you say lie to who? A person or institution? Because it doesn't, even if you, that is a human nature to do that, especially, and you can have no malicious intent, but you're telling me I'm a sin based off something everybody do naturally. Like I can understand for one of the 42 laws of Mayat is not to waste water. That's a choice, and you know not to do that. I can stand behind something like that, but not to lie. Everybody ain't gonna tell you the truth, and when they do, they gonna double speak. I had to learn the art of double speaking. So, and then I think Moses came down and he had the 2 tablets and he broke one, and the subliminal behind him breaking one by him being the first lawbreaker, it get deep. It get deep. And I'm like, okay, and we can talk about this because I got a debate. I got to go somewhere. I think I got to be at the Jehovah's Witness Lodge this Sunday and somewhere else. But I was like, I want to talk to the senior pastor because I was talking to some people outside one day and I stopped them. It was a conversation between 1 or 2 people, and then it ended up being 4 or 5 people. And they was like, I want to pick your brain. Do you mind showing up here on Sunday or here Sunday? And one of the girls was like, I want you to talk to the congregation. I wanted you to talk to the pastor. I said, is he the senior pastor will I be speaking to? Because I don't want to speak to anybody else but the senior pastor. She's like, yeah. I said, okay, bet. I'll show up because I want to talk to him. I got some questions for him, and I know he can't answer them. But that's another topic for another day. I want to get into that, but it just goes to show, like, if you guys just looked into things for yourself, that is a whole message for today. It's just to look into things for yourself, to understand what they mean and apply it to everything in your life and watch your life change before your eyes.
Okay. So I want to stop right there. We started out talking about the word misogyny or misogynist or whatever, and that's how we kind of got here. On a quick note, is that where, because we specifically started off with the definition of misogyny, and I think you're saying that the word was used wrong, or that because you said that people had asked you to kind of expand on what were the exact some of the exact comments about the word.
So I just know by listening to women speak and how they use the word. Now, like I said, they don't ask me about this. I just hear them speak and I ask them, do you know what this means? And the definition is always wrong. Or on the internet, they just don't know what it means. And that's why I want clarification, because you brought it up last episode. And I don't want anybody to...
I asked you, has she ever said anything about maybe, has she ever accused you of being like a misogynist?
Yeah, and I asked her, I said, you think I'm prejudiced against women? She said, no. So how am I misogynist? It doesn't make any sense. So that's why I say, like, where are you getting your information from? The whole point of this is, like, don't take what you hear and take it as value, as word value. Do your own research, and not just with one, like, do it with everything. If you're going to research what a word truly means, then apply that principle to everything you do and start to go down the path of doing things for yourself and not relying on other people to bring the information to you. And with that, you will start to see all the wrong people are doing and how they're using certain words and taking advantage of certain people. But it all stems from, I think I brought this up a while ago, European historiography, because they have a problem with the woman principle, and it's programmed in our subconscious to do the same thing. And if you just take, for example, just like I did, one word and research what that word means, and then from that word, a sentence, and from a sentence, a picture, and from a picture, a movie, and from a movie, religion, and from religion, doctrine, and from doctrine, you know what I'm saying? And just take it and just go down the rabbit hole, because I was at a point to where I wanted to understand what happened, because to this day I still don't know. And that brought me to everything I know today, based off trying to figure out how to love somebody the right way, even if I did it wrong. But
here's the thing. That's essentially, because when we finish in the next part of the next one we finish, that's the thing. You don't learn it in one go round. You don't learn love in one go round. That's one of the reasons why older people have an expanded view of what love is. Love is so many things. Actually, love and hate are on the same spectrum. It's just that if you remember in math, we learned how to do a number line with 0 in the middle and positive numbers on the right and the negative numbers on the left. Same spectrum, but the hate would be on the negative numbers and the love would be the positive numbers. And if you ask a person who's 50 or 60 years old and probably been married 40 years, they're going to see all kinds of stuff on that spectrum. But if you ask a person who's much, much younger, they won't see, most of the time, they're not going to see the negative side of the spectrum, because I think it's just a normal thing that the younger you are, the more pure your version and your definition of love is. Everybody also defines love differently. Everybody defines success differently. So this is where all these different love languages come from, because I love you. I'll be the first person to admit that my version of love was always based on how I felt. And that was when I was 15. And now that I'm 50, I can love you and tell you to get the heck on out of my face and don't call me again, because there's more to love than how you feel. But when your first experiences with what you think love is, it's not going to be the same view as someone who's like twice your age or has been in a relationship or a marriage. Marriage is actually a higher level of love as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying I got it out of a book written just that way, but I can see clearly, because you always wonder, how can a person be married to another person for 60, 70 years and they're still happy? Trust me when I tell you that honeymoon stage that people describe, that's not always been the case. The longer you are with someone, the more trials and tribulations. You have children, the more trials and tribulations. And those years together may sort of put a weight on that feeling of love. But then we found out that love is actually feelings and actions. And so now that I'm 50, I always say my feelings of love guide me towards my actions unto you, because I love you. So my feelings will guide me into action, not just sitting there feeling good, but there's an action behind love. So now we also learned that this thing called tough love. I hear a lot of people talk about tough love. You can love someone, but your actions might look like you don't. Case in point, children. I love you, but I'm not going to buy you another pair of $300 tennis shoes. And the child is thinking, you hate me. No, I love you, and that's why I'm not doing it. So all these things is what love is, but you're not going to know it coming out the gate the first time you feel love. And the younger you are, the less you're probably going to know, because you are the person who's going to evolve and have your own definition of love. And it'll be somewhere in there with everybody else's, because I don't think any two people's definition of love is identical. I don't care if the Bible said, it's just your experience has so much to do with that. So when you say, I didn't know how to love, I didn't know what I didn't know, as you move forward, you'll apply to your next. I know we have another podcast about that too. But when you get into another relationship, you'll apply wisdom that you got from the last one to the next one. Love is progressive. It's extremely progressive. You don't get it all at one time. You just don't.
Okay, so at the end of the day, like you said, the younger you are, the less you're going to know. And how many people aren't willing to put the work in to know for themselves? So due to
they don't
other
know
people's
what work to put in.
Okay,
you don't know.
You're right. So due to your ignorance,
I love you, so I want to spend time with you. I love you, so I want to go to the movies.
So due to your ignorance, how many people will fall victim to somebody else's trail of trauma? Due to your ignorance, what are you gonna take from somebody? 20 years, 30 years, their whole life?
No,
because hold on, wait, because that is a thing. You may hurt somebody, not you, but I'm just saying specifically, like generally. Mm-hmm. You may hurt somebody and take 30 years of their life because they went down a wrong path due to somebody else's ignorance. And then they may get it. They may get it towards the end and get it right. Maybe, if we just don't know. But we know some people have gotten their heart broken and been the same ever since. And some people went out and died this way. So due to your ignorance of you not wanting to know, due to your ignorance of you knowing and not wanting to put more work in, due to your ignorance, what are you going to take from somebody else? And why should somebody else have to bear the burden of that due to somebody else's ignorance? Some people spend 30, 40 years with the same mindset they had, or the hatred they have, or the prejudice they may have about somebody that did them wrong in the past due to that person's ignorance. We've already just discussed, genuinely people don't put the work in, and most people tend to use social media as a teacher, which they fall victim to social proof persuasion. Stop taking what somebody else is giving you as the right answer, as face value. Exactly. And do the own work, because then it'll stop. Then you will know, or you'll begin to know. And then the maturity will kick in, because life isn't about how old you get. Life is about the hits you can take that life throws at you without losing your heart. That's value to me.
Well, No, life is really just about learning and growing and evolving. And that's what I'm saying. Like, so in everything that you just said, a couple things stood out. You are once again sort of faulting. Now, I know you may not use this word, but you are once again sort of faulting the person who's not learning particular things as being remiss in being responsible for their own life. Meaning, if I don't look into XYZ book or whatever,
I'm gonna give you an example.
I am neglecting myself as a human being. But when you use the example of social media, I probably have a YouTube PhD. However, I know enough about me to know that the information and the knowledge that I gather from YouTube, it goes with the information that comes up out of my spirit. And I put them together with the intention to create something for my own life's betterment. It's everywhere. Knowledge, just like healing, is everywhere. Now, where I fault the person is when they don't do the healing work and go back into the same situation the next time and the next time and the next time, and then sort of turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to the fact that they need to do some work.
And that's my point.
But at the same time, if everybody it has nothing to do with age. It's just that I'm 50, and when I was about 18, my personal definition of love was nowhere near what it is now. And two extremely earth-shattering heartbreaks in my life. Two, I thought I had, stood up after the first one. The second one smacked me harder than the first one. But unfortunately, that was the turning point, and I had to take an accurate look. And that's why I said earlier, most people aren't going to engage in it until a situation comes to almost force them to look into the direction of saying, what's wrong? What happened here? Why do I keep getting this? Something isn't right. I'm stuck. All those things that people say that actually become like the pivot, the rounding of the corner, so to speak.
I will say this. Everybody got their heart broken at a young age. Why didn't the definition of insanity is to do something over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome? How many people are guilty of breaking up with somebody, right? And most likely doing it the wrong way, and then immediately going into another relationship and again and again and again. The people they're hurting, the people getting caught in their trail of trauma due to that other person's ignorance when they had the opportunity to get it right because it didn't work out the first time. Nor did you look into it.
Okay. How did they have the opportunity to get it right?
Because it didn't work. If it didn't work, why would you go off and be with somebody else? And then the worst ones are thinking they're not the problem, going off, doing it again. That's what I'm saying.
What should they have done?
If it did not, if the relationship did not work out, then first they need to analyze what went wrong and why didn't it work out. Analyze the boundaries, analyze the things you did wrong. First, start with you before you go to anybody else. Start with you and see what you could have done better, what the arguments were about, why you had the arguments, okay? Where the misunderstanding happened, was it articulation, was it vulnerability, where were you bleeding? And look there and start to go down the rabbit hole of why it didn't work out. What were the problems in the relationship that you were concerned about the most? And from those problems, where could you do better? Like when I went and analyzed mine, I didn't blame her for nothing. I looked into that and see what I did wrong because it ain't about her. Because you can go through your life blaming the other person. It was them, or most people say they'll realize what if they don't? You will never get your closure. And then you go off thinking you're not the problem when it took two. It took two in the first place. So why would you think that breaking up with this person was solely their fault and why it didn't work out? Where was your part to play? For the amount of time you were in that relationship should be at least or close to the time you spend by yourself to understand and to see what went wrong and then move on.
Well, I don't know that I would agree that everybody should, if you spent 7 years in a relationship, you should spend 7 years, single. But I will say that exactly what you just said and exactly the way you just said it, it's perfect if everybody did that. But unfortunately, that goes back to what I said earlier. Everybody's norm is not going to be that. And yes, I would have appreciated it a lot if the few guys that I've been involved in long-term serious relationships, if they would have done some healing work before they got involved with me, and possibly we never would have crossed paths. However, I've told a couple of people, thanks for getting me involved in your crap. I wish you would have done, something different instead of pulling me into your crap. I did some healing work, and I can tell you the mistake I made. So let's just take me. I did some healing work a lot and had another relationship, and I'm looking like, okay, something something's wrong. And unfortunately, especially with women, we will date men based on all the potential we see. And see, that was one of my last lessons to learn in quote unquote love. Don't be dating no guy based on his potential. See what talk he's talking and what walk he's walking. And that probably, like I said, was the very last lesson that I learned about love. But you don't get it all at one time. Even if you think you do, you don't. Because now you took the time, you took some time and you did exactly what you said everybody else should do. You evaluated it. You said, what did you do wrong? What do you think the other person did wrong? What do you think went wrong? So now I've popped my collar, I've put on my coat, and I'm ready to go back out into the world, and now you're crossing paths with someone else. That new path that you cross with someone else, that's the test to see what you actually learned. You have to have the test, so to speak. You have to have a place to apply it. And then when you get involved with, I'm just going to say Sally, and then that relationship lasts 2 years, it was pretty good. But you realize maybe Sally wasn't ready for marriage. Maybe Sally said, Joe's not ready for marriage. And then they said, we have to break up. Okay. Now, you do the same thing again. You evaluate, what did you do wrong? It don't have to be anything in that case that was done wrong. That's why I gave that example. I know people that have broken up specifically because one person wanted marriage, the other person wasn't ready for it. One person wanted kids, the other person wasn't ready for it. Don't mean somebody did something wrong. Now, exhale, you take another breath, you're going back out into the world, and because that's going to be now here's another point. That's going to be a little bit of a heaviness, a little bit more of a heaviness than the first one, because breaking up because someone doesn't want marriage or children, that's kind of heavy. That's kind of major rejection. So you're probably going to spend maybe a year, maybe just go out with your homeboys or your homegirls over drink and not get into a relationship. Now, the next time you cross paths with someone, you may even decide to ask them, have you ever felt like you were filling out a verbal questionnaire when you dated somebody? They may say, what do you think about marriage? Do you want kids? Just like if it was a questionnaire. I know a lot of people who just go ahead and get that stuff out the way. Like I told you, I think a guy didn't want to date me because he asked if I wanted any more kids, and I immediately told him no. And I think that's one of the reasons why he didn't want to kind of go any further with the relationship. That doesn't mean I did something wrong. It would have been wrong if I would have lied to him and told him yeah. But that's what I'm saying. When you gather the wisdom and you do the internal inventory from the breakup, on your path comes a new situation because hopefully you're in a new vibration. So when the new situation presents itself, engage and see who you are now, because you ain't gonna know if you don't engage. You're not gonna know who you are until you get involved in various situations. You're just not.
If the belief is not the same, it shouldn't even last that long. Like. But you can actually have a very good relationship without now listen to what you're saying, because I'm taking you literal. You said the same belief. I have never dated anyone, even the person I was married to. We did not have the exact same belief on everything, but that does not mean that you cannot have a good, happy, wonderful, fruitful relationship. I think the more self-aware you are and the more planted and rooted and grounded you are in your soul self and the more connected you are to your higher self, that's the insurance that you have, that you will walk circumspect, so to speak, and not allow the damage to be done to you again that maybe somebody or two or three people behind you did. That's when you cut it, when you see damage coming. That's when I
what
say
I'm saying.
Belief, I mean like the belief system that y'all both believe in, that y'all can grow from. Solid foundation, the foundation, whatever that may be. But it don't have to
be the exact same belief. You can have a good relationship without having because think about it, how many different things do you believe? The person you're dating don't have to have the exact same belief system in everything. That's what makes the relationship interesting. It has to be something
that y'all share a common interest with. Right. So, for example, just hypothetically
speaking, common interest is one thing. That's a common interest.
For example, and we can talk about this when it comes to religion too, because I want to bring this up later, and then we gotta close out. But for example, if somebody believes in Jesus Christ, then they would most likely want somebody who believes in Jesus Christ. Their belief is the same. Mm-hmm. That's the foundation. They go with it. Or
that's one belief.
That's one belief.
That's one.
Yeah, but that's like whatever your deal breaker is. It's all subjective to whatever it is. Somebody can believe in Shiva, and they both believe in Shiva, or one believes in Shiva and one believes in Jesus Christ. That should be handled within the first week, because nobody should waste their time, right? Because like I said, the difference between love and lust. What is your end game? You have to ask the mature questions, and I'm getting them out the way early, right? Because you
can't learn it all in a week. You can't. I mean, think about. Listen, I'm taking you literally. You can't learn every single thing that everyone believes in 1 week. That's what you go to the movies for. That's why you go to the museum. Your date should be filled with culture and things that spark very fluid and full and enriching conversations. That's when you learn about people. Just listen to them talk. Listen to their opinions about things.
But before we even get to that first date, I'm going to know enough about you to make sure that this is something safe for the both of us. I'm not going to ask you questions I should have asked you over the phone before we got to the date, because we can get to the date. As a matter of fact, this is a perfect example. I'm not going to say most, some women do not know how to hold a conversation. I cannot go anywhere with you because if you cannot hold a conversation, I just can't do it. And I'm not.
Well, for that matter, a lot of guys don't either.
Hold on. I'm not going to carry the conversation. That's a lot of work. I've done that before and I'm not doing it. But I'm going to say it's worse for the women because they never ask any questions, especially when it comes to dating apps. When it comes to dating apps, I have taken, from my own experiences, I have collected data and spoke to other women and looked at their dating apps. I have done extensive research on this. Women do not ask questions. It's always, what are you doing? Like for a guy, he'd text, what are you doing? She'd be like, chilling. Or then the guy be like, what are your plans this week? Oh, nothing much, going to work, doing. They never ask any questions to get to know that man. And this happened with so many women. I even have proof in my phone that women move like this. Now, I'm not saying that's a problem or a deal breaker. And then
how much of this is law of attraction? Because if this is what you're Daidrien, you should attract me, Daidrien.
See, okay, when it comes to law of attraction, we gotta dissect this correctly because I know where I am.
Even believe in the law of attraction, like people say.
I don't either because there's no way. Because people's belief system is it's everywhere. And people don't even understand what they believe in. So this is how I know. Take the law of attraction with a grain of salt because it depends on how you use it. Because I don't feel like if I walked to HEB and seen some chick and I talked to her, we was divinely supposed to be there at the same time. Nah, it's billions of people on this planet. It's gonna happen.
No, not divinely. So that's the path. That's the wavelength, so to speak. But I don't believe that law of attraction is what people are trending on YouTube because my experiences were completely unexplainable and not connectable to these definitions. So I formulated my own, just like I did with love, success, happiness. I'm saying that I really want you to be mindful of something that you're saying. How about when you say something like women don't ask a lot of questions? How about maybe you just say women your age? Because remember, I'm a woman and I can tell you I've never been the kind of woman that you run into. I've never been that kind of woman. I was always naturally a reader, naturally intelligent, naturally, just a bucket of love and a kind person. I think that maybe that's what I'm saying. Like,
I'm going to say this. The women I've attracted recently have been older and they cannot hold a conversation with me because most of the time I lose them in conversation.
Right,
I know I was talking to a woman. I was talking to a woman. She was in her 40s. She was running a business and had no idea what I was talking about. When
what were you talking about, legal stuff?
Yeah, like trust law, consumer law, contract law.
The average person don't know that stuff.
Okay, we're not gonna get into this because we're gonna save this for another. We're gonna save this for another time. But that doesn't mean.
I just want to say this. It doesn't mean that she won't know what those things are. Maybe in the next year or two, because running a business, the business owner is constantly. It's a 24-hour job. I did not know about those things until someone told me about those things. I did not know the difference between an S Corp and a corporation and an LLC until I had to know. That's what I'm saying. I don't think you're giving people enough grace.
I'm not saying she should know it. I learned so much. I realized how much I don't know. Like, I just don't know. And her world is different from my world. I'm just saying.
Right, but you have made a lot of statements, Daidrien, that gauge what you know based on, you think that people should know or be into those things. But I'm not saying that you think they should because you are. I think you're saying they should because it pertains to life. But everything pertains to life. And maybe they just read a book on, something else last week and they just haven't got there yet. I don't hear you giving no grace. Every time you say that, you line up the stuff, the trust law and the stuff that you know and talk about, and then you draw a line and you line someone else up and what they did or didn't know compared to those things. You take the legal stuff that you know about and all the conscious stuff, I can't name it all, okay? So I'm just going to put it like that in a little box. And then you line everybody up against those things, and you actually make it seem like people should be knowing and learning what you know because that's the thing that they should be knowing and learning about. But that's just things that you're really interested in, and I don't hear you give anybody who don't know about those things any grace for what they actually do know, because you're not talking about any of those things. What if they know about open heart surgery and you don't? You don't give nobody no grace on the opposite side.
I was gonna just bring that up. Like, I can hold a conversation with pretty much a lot of people in a lot of different fields. I can hold a conversation with people who are physicians. I have people who are doctors, and we have conversations. And I'm able to take what I know and ask them questions to engage myself in the conversation. So all I'm asking is, why can't the other person do it for me? That's all I'm saying.
Why can't you have a conversation on their level?
Because the other person don't know what to say. That's the problem. They don't know how to hold a conversation. That's my point. Like,
no, maybe they don't know. Maybe they just don't know how to hold a conversation at the level that you're wanting to hold it. But maybe just talk about red cars.
I'm saying is,
just talk about red cars, and maybe they'll liven up.
If I had a neurosurgeon in front of me, I'm gonna bounce questions that he can answer, or I can conjure up that he can answer. All I'm saying is,
but why would you conjure up the question? Are you trying to learn something?
I'm trying to learn something. That's the point of me asking somebody a question.
Okay, so I consider myself a highly intelligent person, and I may not strike up a conversation with a neuroscientist about brains. I just might not be interested in it.
But I just
might want to talk about, did you go to the rodeo last night? Because I love Reba McEntire. Do you like Reba McEntire? Do you like soup?
Okay, but I can do that. I can meet you where you are.
Because you have to think about this as a human being. They have smarts in their brain. Maybe they just don't want to talk about something, or maybe they just maybe I would love to be a fly on the wall and just see how these particular interactions that you're talking about take place. And I bet you I could show you the issue, because you said the girls that I meet, they can't hold a conversation. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I actually repeat that back to you right?
Yep.
The girls that I meet can,
yes.
Okay.
And then, okay,
so
go
you
ahead.
said that they cannot hold a conversation. Okay.
Yep.
And then on the other hand, you said, I meet people that I can hold a conversation with. So maybe it's just simply that the girls that you're meeting, maybe they had a bad day.
How can you not carry the conversation if you're the one that's interested? That's what I'm saying. As a man, and most men, if a woman finds me attractive, obviously they're gonna, and this is a norm that a man's supposed to carry the conversation. Well, how can I carry the conversation if she can't ask me any questions? That's all I'm saying.
You think it's okay? Fallacy number 399. You think it's the norm that the man carries the conversation?
That's what my generation believes.
Okay. You just gave it another dynamic. You said your generation. So what if we just categorize it with your generation? Your generation is just on some other stuff, bro, because I'm telling you, the reason why is because their minds are not on, they're on this fast life, get money quick. They want the Cardi B lifestyle. That really, and I love Cardi B, but unfortunately, we don't know what Cardi B's level of intelligence is. I actually think that she's a very kind-hearted, giving person, and that would do it for me because I think I love her soul. However, demographically speaking, generationally speaking, not demographically, but generationally speaking, your generation is not really interested in too much like deep knowledge. Like they want the riches and the fame and the glam and the YouTube influencer and the $1 million deal. That's what they're interested in. So next time you meet somebody that's along those lines, try talking about something like that and see how hyped in the conversation they get.
Okay, so that's a good point that you made. So if I bring it up and I ask you questions of how to get there, how are you going to tell me you don't know? That's what I'm talking about. You want this, but don't even have a plan to get there. We can't even talk about that.
There you go again, though. Maybe they just want to talk about how they like it. So maybe they don't have to. You see, you're telling them what they should do and think again. You're saying, how do you hold
a conversation,
what
though?
Kinds of Okay, so let me give you an example because I keep you.
That doesn't make any sense. How can you want to be somewhere but have no idea how to get there, or not even trying to bounce ideas off of me to give you an understanding?
But they don't have to prove that to you in a conversation. Maybe listen.
So how do you hold a conversation? Can you please tell me how to hold a conversation?
First of all, a conversation always starts off casual. It's casual. You meet someone. I don't know why I keep getting this vision of two people meeting like in a hospital hallway. Okay, so if you've ever passed someone, I don't know how you meet people. I've met people literally in passing. I've met people at red lights. I've met people at restaurants. All the different places that you can meet someone. First of all, those places where you're meeting them, those are conversation starters in and of itself. So I met someone at a red light. I met somebody 20, 25, 30 years ago at a red light. So started dating a guy, and, I don't know that I was more into him than he was into me. I just know that he had a whole nother kind of situation going on, and I didn't know it from the beginning, but it really wasn't going to let us be like, full happy couple. So I've met a person at work. I've met and dated 3 or 4 guys in the job scene. That's a lot to talk about because you got a common interest right there with work. I'm saying there's a casual way that things sort of unfold. And usually, you know, a common interest, like if you've ever gone out to happy hour with coworkers, most of the time it's going to be like work or this customer or or you're going to talk about your child or your family, or next week we've got to do this proposal. It's just going to be casually unfolding relationship. Conversations. What I hear you saying is that kind of thing ain't good enough for you or ain't fast enough. But what I'm saying is, let things unfold.
That's how I start all my conversations, casually, but it gets to a point where I want to know more about you and what you know. Where you're going.
30 minutes later? Because you said in a week you should know it all, and I'm telling you, it ain't possible.
I didn't say a week I should know it all. I'm saying that there's some belief system that we can agree on within that week if we're going to continue this relationship. I'm not going to ask you surface level questions in a week. But
what I'm telling you is, don't aim for that. Just let it unfold. In other words, don't verbally don't give them a verbal questionnaire. Like, okay, yeah, I don't do that. But when I get to let it, no, I'm not saying you do. I'm saying just let it unfold. Like, just let the thing unfold.
I do let it unfold. But the thing is, what am I gonna do with the? I bear no fruit from the conversation. So how much of my time am I going to waste with information that I can't do anything with? And then not to mention, women get bored very fast. So you expect me to have small talk with a woman. That's you. You expect me to have small talk with a woman, and then she gets bored within 2 weeks. And then all I know about her is I should go to the rodeo and she like horses. Okay, this generation moves so fast. And when women talk to me, they're like, I got to bring a notebook. How do you know so much? It's always positive feedback, okay? Because I'm not dumping information onto them. I'm just, basically what I'm saying is I can bring something up and back up what I'm saying. If they bring it up, back up what you're saying, regardless if that's small talk or something more deep. And that drags the conversation. That is what gives the conversation substance, because now you're learning, and then you're learning about me. So you get more from the interaction than I do. All I'm saying is, can I get some too? I don't care about your favorite color. I don't care about
why.
Okay,
are you kidding me?
What am I gonna?
That's my point right there. That's my point. That's why you're gonna have a problem, because someone's favorite color is important.
But I'm not gonna ask you your favorite color within a week. Like I get to that. I get to that. But
you know what? But
I think there are more important matters to address.
You know what? No, there's not. You don't get to decide that. That's my point. That's my point, Daidrien. You are deciding it for everybody, and you shouldn't do that. It really shows that you can't have a casual, unfolding conversation. Listen, notice things about the woman. You know what I noticed? That you always wear pink. And she'll say, yeah, I love Hello Kitty. Hello Kitty is my favorite animation cartoon or whatever, and you should see my room. It's like, it's got pink Hello Kitty on my headboard, and my mom actually found Hello Kitty from someone in France, and an original Hello Kitty, I'm just going to say whatever, insignia, and bought it for me. And then when the lady sent it to me, like, she included all this other Hello Kitty stuff in there. And see, that's getting to know her.
You see how you said all of that? That's perfect. But when I bring it up, it's not like that. It's like, oh, I noticed you wear this color all the time. Yeah, that's mostly my closet. They don't talk how you talk. When me and you talk, we talk on the phone for hours. We can do that, and the conversation flows. Why isn't it that? Yeah, Why you're taking what you know and you're applying it to what you think women or you? I think you believe that women, to some degree, should have the information that you have in your head. I think, I'm going to be honest, you may be giving them a little bit too much, because I don't think you understand how much you know. You know a lot. You're very educated.
And you do too. And I think that the same thing I just did, you do it, but with the stuff you know. And since they don't know it, if you bring it in too fast, you're going to shut them down, because they're going to feel stupid. The average person, Daidrien, don't know what you know. I'm going to say this for the last 2 months. You are just a bit of an anomaly, Daidrien. You just are. In your soul, but I'm telling you, then the skill you need to learn, but the skill you need to learn is how to not do that. I wasn't doing what I just did 18 years ago, or when I was 18 years old, my first boyfriend, or 21 when I had the next one, those guys really intimidated me. So my internal thoughts was, oh my God, I want them to love me. I want them to love me. I want them to like me so much. And so I tried to say everything the right thing and do everything the right thing. And even though they proved early on that they just were not really worth my time. And so that was one of those two, was like my first major heartbreak. That's when, unfortunately, sometimes it takes being spun backwards to just stop and just you get kind of jarred, and you be like, whoa, what was that? But what you're doing is you're flowing forward. And if that means that you had a conversation with 10 girls in your age group this week and all 10 of them were flopped, then you still are moving forward to the 12th one. That's what I'm saying. So don't sum everybody up. You will get to and someone may spew out just like I just did. But I wasn't doing that when I was 21 years old, 22, 20. I really wasn't. When I started doing that was when I met the person that I married, and I was 25. I was 24, 20. I was 25.
So
because
here's the thing, and I hear what you're saying is valid and it makes total sense, and I agree with you saying. I would like to say, just because, for example, and you made a good point and it stuck out to me, that they're going to feel like I'm putting them down. But am I doing that? No, I'm not. But because they go out feeling the way they want to feel based off what they tell themselves, based off what they do not know, I am now categorized as a what kind of person? And that's the entire point I was trying to make the entire time. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Then they go off and say whatever they say based off them not understanding. That's why it's so, I gotta really pick and choose. I'm not even gonna say pick and choose. That's why I stay by myself. And I have no issue with that. And I do give them grace, because how many people have labeled me the wrong thing based off what they do not know? And that's my life.
But that's also mine too. And the next door neighbors, you're not saying anything that everybody don't always go through. This is what I'm saying. Like, I almost want to say, and I hate cliche crap, but I almost want to say, don't take it personal. Because I just told someone today, someone else's perception of you is not your problem. That's based on their views, their opinions, their beliefs, because their eyes, 2 + 2 = 4. So that output, which is their perception of you, is based on their own internal stuff. So that's what I'm saying. You have to say, well, I don't know, I guess. And then you said earlier, I think I talk too much. I don't think you talk too much. I think that specific things that you might say sometimes is way out of somebody's league, to the point where in them, not because you did it, but in them, they're probably saying, oh my God, he's talking all kinds of stuff I don't know. He probably got a PhD. He probably was a child prodigy. And I just don't know how I can... Listen, and I just listen. This is what they're saying, and I just don't know if I can I don't know if I can do that, because I don't know how to talk to. And so then you may talk to them 2 or 3 weeks later, and then it may go the same way, and they might say, I just don't think that we're on the same level. Now notice, they didn't say anything that you were on a higher or a lower level, and you didn't either. But that output, I don't think that we're on the same level. It's based on all the things comprised together, and whatever words you say. Because listen, I've been on both sides of that table where I'm like, ooh, as a matter of fact, it came up in the conversation when you said who has it worse. The podcast, we talked about who has it worse in dating, men or women. And we talked about intimidating factors. Do you remember that? We talked about intimidating factors, and I have some factors that I know about my life that intimidate men. And I even said that there are some things about certain types of men that intimidate me. And I'm probably going to sort of back out quietly and gracefully and admit to myself, I don't think that we're on the same level, or I've even said to myself once or twice, I don't think I'm on his level. And so it happens to everybody, but you're still moving forward.
If I came across somebody who was not on the same level as me, I'm going to stick to that person. I'm not intimidated by that. I want to know what you know. Teach me. I'm just saying this as a general, I'm not gonna wow, we can do something together. You know more than me on this, and I may know more than you on this, or I can bounce ideas off of you with this. I'm gonna stick around this person.
But what if they don't want to? Is this rejection? What is this? What am I doing? That's what I'm saying, literally, instead of maybe trying to dissect it so deep like that. Because in each of those things, you would have to be giving yourself some kind of feedback. You have to be, because we talked about this earlier about how when things don't work out, you kind of rest up, look at the situation, evaluate it, And so you have an internal feedback loop that's happening, whatever it is you're thinking about. And so another week later, you have a conversation like the girl at the wing place. Had a conversation there. That was on Valentine's Day when you told me about that conversation.
Yeah.
You know, all that feedback and all that feedback that I said an hour ago, all that feedback is really creating your definition of love. It's creating your definition of success. It's creating your definition of happiness. That's because that's what you get to do. And no two people have the same definition of any of those things. They're kind of like abstract. You kind of get to define it for yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, while you may not think that you're having forward movement, you are.
So, okay, I can agree to that. Man always pursued and been persistent and consistent and asked the questions to the point to where when she came across a man who actually knows how to hold a conversation and it's meaningful, they don't know what to do. That's what I'm going to tell myself for my peace. That's what I'm going to tell myself, because I can see that, and I can see how consistent men are, especially when the conversation is one-sided. Like, I can see this, and women even did a study on this. Some women made dating apps for men and was a man and in their profile and everything, and they went to try to talk to women, and they seen how hard it was. There was actually a girl who became a man for 2 years, and she couldn't handle it, and she came back because she said how women treated men, it was so different that even when she converted back to being a girl, the trauma of her and how she was treated when she was a man, it led her to suicide. And then there's another one where a girl had made a dating app, and she was talking as if she's a man. And she said it's so hard to hold a conversation with a woman, and it gets exhausting, especially if there's no potential with this one. And the best way to know that is to see how meaningful the conversation can get. That's why I try to eliminate small talk pretty fast. And I'm pretty good at making a woman feel comfortable now, because I'm a lot more confident. And I think being a lot more confident and being vulnerable definitely helps with that, because nobody's perfect, neither am I. And I got a bunch of flaws. And I always lead with that first, because that's the truth. And I want you to choose if you want to deal with me based off my flaws. They know more about me, but it's very hard for me to know about them. And that's because I know how to hold the conversation, but do they know how to hold the conversation? And I think that just comes from them never having to carry it. That's all I'm saying.
And I don't disagree with that particular aspect about it's such a mistake for women to think that men, I do not believe in men chasing women. I only believe this one thing or something along those lines, but not really. But I just think that if a man is interested in a woman, especially romantically, that he should make the move and letting her know. In other words, if we're in public and I'm with my friends and you're standing over there and, maybe you, I don't know, peep me out long enough and made a decision that you want to approach me or something like that, that you approach, I'm really talking about in the approach. You approach me, hey, how you doing? I noticed you over there. You look really nice. And, I've had men tell me, strangers in public who watch me, you have a really loud, contagious laugh. I heard you laughing from way across on the other side of the room. That's a great icebreaker. I know it's not a pickup line because many men have told me that. And that you've already out, the door is cracked, honey. You can come on through. Now let's see what else. Now, that's it. That's all I require. So, and I'm gonna go on to say, yeah, because one time I had a doctor and he was a neurologist, and even though I hated him, when I bust out laughing, he was tickling my funny bone, and he said, your laughter is contagious. I'm probably gonna say something like that's a real true story though too. So the man has already initiated his approach. Okay, that's what I think that a man should do. Initiate the approach, and he's gonna. Remember I told you about I wanted a guy to watch me, to learn how to approach me. Okay, so he's done that. And so he's going to say something. Trust me when I tell you, there is something where his authenticity in approaching her, there's going to be like this automated response that engages them in conversation. They're probably going to laugh. That's the kind of naturalness that it's a naturalness thing. That's what I mean when I say, when I did the whole Hello Kitty spiel. So there's a big difference. And I can tell when a guy just approached me because he thinks I'm cute. Them dudes maybe want to just slap them. It's a whole different response. You married? Yep. Matter of fact, my husband waiting for me now. Bye. I'm exiting the building quickly. I just feel like there's something in the approach, and it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be genius level or some psychic or whatever to get inside their head. But I think that there is something that goes for sort of observing for a minute and then approaching. And that is because I know me. And if you approach me the right way, the door is going to open by itself. It's like going through a turnstile. It's just, if you stand there, it's just going to open. And I've had different approaches in all my life. And those are the ones, relationships or conversations, because everybody was in a relationship. Sometimes we just left and went our separate ways, but those are the ones that are the most enjoyable. There's a naturalness to it. That's what I'm saying.
Definitely.
There's just a naturalness to it.
Definitely a case by case, but
exactly.
We can definitely touch more on this. This episode did run kind of long, but we needed this because we've been going for a while, and I enjoyed it. I'm for real. I enjoyed it. I already know how much time it's gonna take to get out, but ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna get it out. Okay, it's gonna take me some time, but I'm gonna get it out. Is there anything else you wanna say before we close out?
No, just that. Just since that was the last note that we finished on, you'll know. I just feel like people, no matter what people's general consensus is with dating men, dating women, the ones that are sort of worth it are the ones where there's just this naturalness that's to it from the beginning. And I think that's an indication, your soul is telling you, yeah, that's kind of the direction you should go in. I think that anything else, you don't have to, force anything and things like that. But even if it's multiple times, you'll see, because of the naturalness that comes with it when you sort of engage with them. And I think that's always an indication that that's a good sign to sort of proceed, And that's it. That's it. Everybody has their own definition of love, success, happiness. But you have the right to, as a person, to come up with your own definition of those things. Not what social media says. Not even what the experts and what the gurus say. So you get to do that. So take your time, and it will come. It really will come. Promise. And that's it. That's it.
Absolutely. And the message for today, ladies and gents, is to do your own research. That's it. Just don't take what we say as face value, and always do your own research so that you know what you're getting yourself into, and you understand what it is that you're receiving. Because like Carla said a long time ago, your brain is always receiving. You want to make sure you attach the right definition to what you're receiving so that whatever you manifest, whatever you want, will come into existence. But first, you have to put the right titles on right words and properly know what it is that you want and what it means. Because like the saying goes, be careful what you wish for. If you have a direct visualization and you're confident and you stand with conviction that you know what certain things mean, you're already a lot more ahead of the game. And the fact that, and those of you who stayed to the end of this podcast, you have an advantage in the world. Because the average attention span is less than a minute. If you made it to the 2-hour mark, then you have what it takes to be successful. You have what it takes. You have that desire. You have that intuitive nature to learn. And this is the place for it. So with that being said, you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.